Well, it's time for us to take a closer look, and it's a closer look at a topic that has been near and dear to our hearts as the saga has unfolded. The US Department of Justice has announced a settlement in their lawsuit against the proposed HPE acquisition of Juniper Networks. The release says that in order for the deal to move forward, HPE must sell off the instant online of Aruba networking access points, and additionally, Juniper must auction the license for third party use of Juniper's AI ops for Mist. The details of the auction are complicated. Up to two companies can win the rights to license through the bidding process, and Juniper must make up to 55 employees available to be hired by one of the winners to work on the product, including incentives for Juniper for them to move companies. The deal is still pending approval by a judge, but most people are treating it as a done deal. Tom, where do we start digging through this pile of things?
A bottle of tequila because we might be here for a while. This came out, I believe, either late Friday or Saturday. I got the email from HPE on Saturday saying, "Hey, we've got a resolution to this thing." And when I looked at it, I was like, "That's really weird. I don't quite understand why they're doing that." So let's talk about the first part first because it's the least consequential part. HPE Aruba Networking needs to get rid of instant on access points. Why? It was a line of access points that basically was for a small business or small to medium enterprise where you only manage like 4 devices. That realistically, you just want the access point hardware. You don't need the controller software or any of that other stuff. You're not going to pay a monthly or yearly fee to license them through the cloud, whatever. Not sure why they didn't get to keep that, but now they're saying we got to get rid of it. And HPE said, sure, no problem. The other thing, and this is where most people have the point of contention. So when the acquisition was announced, almost everybody that I know said, "Oh, great. HPE is going to get Juniper and Mist, and this is going to be amazing." And then the Department of Justice came out and said, "This is going to create less competition in the market for wireless companies, and we can't let that stand." And a lot of people were scratching their heads going, "But really? It is? Because there's more than 3 vendors in the wireless market, but okay." And then this remedy comes out, and you're not buying Juniper AI ops for Mist. You're buying a license to use it. Now, as was pointed out by my friend Sam Clemens when we recorded an episode of the Tech Field Day podcast about this earlier today, there's no set limit on the amount of time that you get to hold this, and there's no set like restriction other than the fact you got to bid on it at auction. But as my other good friend Jake Snyder pointed out on that call, you're looking at a minimum of 18 to 24 months to integrate whatever they're doing into your product line. If you weren't already working on this, you probably don't have a plan to do it, which means you are literally starting from ground zero. That's why there's a provision in the auction for you to hire up to 55 Juniper employees. 35 of them are technical assets that know how the product works, and 20 of them are sales assets that know how to sell the product. But HPE controls the code, right? Because you're not buying source code, you're buying a license to use the product. Okay, but why? So when you hear from Antonio Neri, which he came out with a statement on Monday, and he said, "Well, we told you that we weren't buying this for the wireless stuff. We were buying it for other things." Yeah, they have a data center switching infrastructure. They have a carrier router infrastructure. They have a campus switching infrastructure. There's a lot more overlap in the campus switching and the wireless piece, but Juniper Mist AI ops stuff is infiltrating all of the rest of those product lines. There was an article that came out earlier this year about how they're applying the Juniper AI, Juniper Mist AI model to things like carrier routing, which, okay, great. I'm down with that. So does that mean that they're not going to develop that anymore? Does that mean that they say that we could do it better in-house? Does it not integrate with Aruba Central? I mean, I know that the messaging from Discover last week was, there was a lot of talk of AI and all the things that it's going to do, but we know that a lot of that is in service to things like GreenLake, where why buy the compute when we can rent it to you in perpetuity, like a cloud? So I'm still scratching my head on this. And that's not even counting the conspiracy theories that people have been spinning about how the CEO of Cisco flew to DC for weeks on end trying to convince the DOJ to secretly wreck this deal. And it was really apparent whenever the Gartner Magic Quadrant came out and Juniper Mist was in the uppest rightest part of the quadrant, which means that they must be the bestest of all. And Cisco was actually over here in the wrong spot. And this is all some kind of weird conspiracy theory. And that's pretty much when I tuned out. Um, but Al, speaking from someone as someone who is not intimately familiar with the wireless aspects of this, what do you think is the advantage for HPE pretty much giving in to agree to this ridiculous auction in order to get the rest of Juniper as their new networking division?
Well, I think the simple answer is they didn't think that the Mist AI Ops was the most valuable thing they were buying. That they already have some AI Ops capabilities ever since the Nimble acquisition. AI Ops has been a thing that they've been building out through the storage side of the business, and there's no reason that couldn't continue to build out across more of the portfolio. So AI Ops absolutely is important, but I don't think that HPE was starting from ground zero on AI ops and trying to catch up. On the other hand, lots of the bits of the market that Juniper are in are not places that are a huge overlap for HPE. And so having somebody who in those wonderful Gartner Magic Quadrant is uppest and rightest in enterprise networking seems like a good place to acquire if you're not already uppest and rightest in that section. So I think, yeah, this interesting collection of restrictions put on by the DOJ don't necessarily correspond to actually being a problem for HPE. Or also being that significant. I think one of the telling parts on this is that although this is a multi billion dollar acquisition, the price that the DOJ said was the minimum license price was $8 million. So we've already spent more than that on coffee for our lawyers. This amount is not anything significant. It doesn't value that Mist AI ops very high. If you say the minimum price is $8 million, if you said the minimum price was, I don't know, $200 million, then we're starting to think about this being a significant piece of the value that's being acquired. But you've very clearly stated that the thing that you had a problem with, this operations and AI for Wi-Fi is not actually that, for mobile is not that significant. You haven't valued it very highly in the overall deal. So it does feel like you are straining on a gnat whilst you're swallowing the camel. Although, of course, it's a particularly tasty camel, particularly for HPE as they get into another nice piece of market. And I think my friends at Juniper are pretty happy and excited about this as well. Tom, is there some other place where there's Juniper products that are going to extend and expand what HPE has traditionally done in networking?
Yeah, I think that the goal of this was the data center switching infrastructure. They needed this acquisition for that. Carrier routers is kind of a, I don't know, it's like IBM's mainframe business, right? Is you are the last buggy whip manufacturer. So you're going to make money on that no matter what. You don't have to put a whole lot of money into it to compete. Yeah, you have to put a little in there. But the data center switches are where there's real value because it allows them to really focus on building out GreenLake stuff. Yeah. All right. The Aruba people are going to point out that yes, they did sell data center switches, and I've never seen one deployed that wasn't in an Aruba HP Aruba network. Like people did not go to HPE as the primary vendor for data center switching if they weren't already buying HPE kit. It's kind of like, in the old days when IBM would sell you everything for a blade center. Even if the switches weren't branded as IBM, they got you ones that kind of really only worked with that system just because they didn't want to sell you ones from Cisco or Nokia or whomever. So I feel like they're telling the truth when they say that this was not about the wireless part of it. And for the record, it is $8 million minimum to get a license for Juniper AI Ops for Mist. Juniper paid $400 million to acquire Mist, so it's what 2% at best. So I think, and someone pointed this out to me, I think they already have a bidder in mind. The clunkiness, like it's going to be two, it can't be three, it could be one, maybe. But if more than one company bids over $8 million, then it's the two that they select randomly. There's a link to an article from CRN that actually explains this process way better than the order does. But yeah, it's like it is. You know how it is when people will write an RFP so that only one person can win it. That's kind of what this feels like. And I've been noodling on this all day, yesterday and today. Who would buy this? I still don't have a great answer. And maybe the point is that nobody's going to buy it. They're going to put it out there for auction, and then people are going to bid on it, and they're going to refuse the bid or whatever, and they're still going to keep control over it, and everybody's going to be happy because Rami Rahim gets to take over the networking division at HPE, and he gets to basically finish out his career there. They become the clear number 2 favorite against Cisco pretty much everywhere, riding that new momentum from their magic square that says that they're the uppest and rightest and the bestest. But I think what's going to end up happening overall is we've already heard rumblings behind the scenes that there's a coming culture clash with some of the divisions inside of the company where, HPE kind of has this staid, um, traditional approach to marketing and things like that. And these are the upstarts coming in like, no, we're going to do things this way. And we're going to do that this way. And I've already heard of, well, we've already seen a lot of people who have departed on both sides of the fence, saying a lot of the HPE Aruba networking people say, well, I'm not really going to have a place over at Juniper when they come in, so I'm going to move or I'm going to leave. And likewise, a lot of Juniper people feel like that they were going to be replicated. But the biggest thing I think is that I feel like the Department of Justice, almost in a way, they jumped out in front of this and said, well, we have to give them a concession because we halted this. Like we absolutely have to say that we did something, because if we don't, now we're going to look stupid. And the other thing is that they made it as penalty free as possible, because if this acquisition doesn't close, I believe it's by October, then I believe it is HPE that owes $1 billion to Juniper as kind of the we're serious about doing this acquisition out. So expect the as soon as the judge signs off this, expect it to accelerate so that they don't have to pay that. But if this ends up being kind of a window dressing kind of thing, and if there's no real bidder for instant on, people are going to have to go back and look at what motivated the DOJ to do this, and it better be a better answer than we look like we had to be doing something.
Yeah, if I'm going to look stupid, I'd rather look stupid with my mouth shut than say something stupid and have people know for sure that I've done something stupid. And I think DOJ may have done better if they just said, yeah, actually, things look good.
Hey everyone, Future Tom here. Just got done with an analyst call that was being held because the HPE Juniper Networks acquisition closed on July 2nd. And got to hear from Antonio Neri and from Rami Rahim, who is now the VP and GM of the combined HPE networking business unit. And I was actually able to ask the question, who retains the rights to Juniper AI Ops for Mist? And they asked the question and it was answered. And I just want to make sure that I update our story here. The license is just a license for use and support. It is not a divestiture. It is not a transfer of intellectual property. And it is only the AI ops portion. It is nothing else. According to Rami and Antonio, the innovation engine for Mist is incredibly strong now and well into the future. They have the best talent in the industry, and they have over 10 years of experience and learning from real world deployments. So it sounds to me like what's really going on is this was just a small piece of a very bigger whole that was required to be licensed out, or at least the option to license it out. This is not a divestiture. Looks like Mist is going to be staying with Juniper, and there were actually lots of questions around how Mist is going to be integrated into all of those product lines. Of course, we're just a couple of hours into the closed acquisition, and they're not entirely sure yet. But just wanted to make sure that we updated the story to let you know that it looks like things are sticking in-house for a while, and we're going to have to see where that goes.